Hi, my name is Nolan Hack. I am a black revolutionary from Los Angeles, California.
And I am John Kane. I am a Native activist and a radio show host, as well as a freelance columnist.
My name is Tracy.
All right. So the topic at hand tonight, this terrific trio that we have, how do we support each other? How do we do a better job supporting each other in each of our own communities? So me speaking as a black person, how do we support our fellow brothers and sisters? How do Native people support each other in their communities? And when I say support, I mean giving them a shoulder to lean on, a shoulder to cry on, checking them when they become harmful to us as people or to the movement at large, and then supporting each other from our side of the table to the Native side of the table and vice versa. Solidarity is vital to our own, each of our own liberation. And there was some chatter this week. It was one of those rough weeks on Twitter for the black and Native community, the infighting. There was one brother who said, wait, Native people got reparations. Native people, they got the reservations. They're just sitting pretty, okay? We didn't get any reparations. And he rightfully got checked.
Somebody actually said that?
Yeah, black dude. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
I saw that too.
Oh, yeah. And
yeah, but then black people get to Liberia?
Yeah. And I also heard, and this has been chatter, at least on social media, off and on for a while, that black people are settlers on Turtle Island, which is false because we were brought here against our will. We didn't settle anywhere. We just were displaced people on stolen land. So when those types of things are said by one group about the other, and vice versa, it makes it very difficult for one group and the other to support each other. So with all that said, Tracy, John, do you have anything to say about the topic at hand?
Let me start by bringing up what you and I spoke about prior to the show. And you said the topic of the show would be supporting marginalized communities, Native Americans and African Americans or black people. And I said that inherent in this topic is some type of allyship. What does support look like? Who decides what the support looks like? And I have an objection even to the word ally. I don't believe in allies as the word is flung about on social media. An ally or allyship relationship are people uniting for a common goal. And they're working together for a mutual benefit. That might be eradicating racism in society. But even in an ally relationship, the dominant group benefits the most. And the go-to example is affirmative action. Everyone knows that it benefited white women the most. Although we all came together, so to speak, to push for protections for minority groups, the dominant group benefited the most. So I'm really hesitant to use the word ally when we have discussions about support. Any comments to that?
That's fair.
I think there's a point to be made for that. I agree. to an extent. Understanding that sometimes the reason for standing together with each other, or groups standing together, isn't necessarily just for mutual benefit. Sometimes I think people need to stand on the right side of something just because it's the right side of something, whether they are the beneficiaries of that, the direct beneficiaries of that position or not. I think there's sometimes a simpleness to what's wrong and right, and the idea of oppressing a people. I'm not looking for only the people who will benefit from standing up to that oppression. I want the oppressors to stand up to that as well. And you're right.
Oh, I'm not. Hold on. I think you're misunderstanding me.
No, I'm not misunderstanding. I'm adding to it. I'm adding to the conversation.
Go ahead. Finish your point, John. Go ahead.
No, my point isn't to oppose what she's saying. I'm just saying that I understand the definition of ally, and I agree with the problem that Tracy has with it. I'm just saying that there are other reasons to stand together other than just for mutual benefit, and that's the only point that I'm trying to add to the conversation. I'm not trying to take a contrarian position on it.
Okay.
I could agree.
And I agree. I believe people do need to come together and work together for whatever the particular cause or movement is. I'm just observing out loud that that movement and that goal is beneficial, but it just seems that the benefits of it don't help the oppressed group near as much as it does the dominant group, and I really take issue with that. So when we look at support, what is support? How does it look? How do we make sure we're supporting in a way that is helpful and doesn't further drive discrimination and drive racism? Now, what is that going to look like, especially for the dominant group? We know what we feel like we need, or how we say this is what we need from you. The oppressors are the ones that are having an issue with that, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the oppressors still believe that we get the most out of affirmative action, and it takes things from them, and they're oppressed. Most white Americans actually now believe they are oppressed. I think one way to support each other, and you could throw other races, marginalized races, or marginalized people into this as well, Arabs, transgender people, etc., is to support each other outside of the system, because like with affirmative action, that was implemented within the system. And we're all in agreement, and I think just about everybody does this panel is in agreement that the system and this government has to go for us to be free from either side of the table, black or indigenous. And that support system going across the aisle, going to the other side of the table, black or native, or again, Arab, etc., is needed, whether it's selfish, meaning like as a black person, we need native people and they need us. Without the, well, I wouldn't use allyship, without us teaming together, we're never going to get free. But then also, well, wait a minute, native people need us because their population is so low in terms of the official stats. They don't have a voice. When they talk, when they yell at the top of their lungs, nobody listens. We need to lend them our microphone. Now, when we talk, we're listened to, but nothing happens. But we're listened to, and then they try to push the mute button or turn off the television, turn off the radio. But at least people listen to us. You know, we had, right or wrong, we had a president. We have many famous folks in different areas of society, musically, movies, TV, sports, etc. Even politicians, right or wrong. But Native people
Judges.
don't have the same. Go ahead.
Well, and I would like to I'd like to go a little farther with that, because for me, even looking at, again, within the system, I don't want our people to be in that system necessarily. I mean, I'm not going to necessarily condemn somebody for doing it, but at the same time, I don't think a Native person becoming a politician, an American politician, or even asserting their rights as an American serves our long-term interest. That's why, one of the differences between Native people and other marginalized people within the United States is that many of us are not fighting for constitutional rights or for equality within the United States or as Americans. We're fighting for our distinction and our autonomy, which is a little different. I mean, that's why I take a bit of a position against those who want to run for state office or national office, or praise the idea that a Native person became a federal judge, or running for president or whatever else, because I think that in those situations we're losing some of our best people to the very system that is oppressing us. I mean, and I go back to not just Malcolm X, House Negro, Field Negro, or even Martin Luther King talking to Harry Belafonte saying, I fear that I'm integrating my people into a burning house. As a Native person, I don't want to be an American. That's not what I strive for, and I'm not striving for equality within the American system. I'm striving for our distinction and our autonomy and our sovereignty to be not just respected, but from our standpoint to be asserted, which is where the first part of your conversation kind of takes a step, because we have to understand that in any one of these spectrums of marginalized people, there are people in different places on that spectrum. The ones who are the outright hardline activists and they could be on the fringe on one side, versus the people that are really just trying to fit in with white people. So if you're a Ben Carson, or I can think of a bunch of Native people who did this, that are the same way. Charles Curtis, Vice President of the United States under Herbert Hoover. That was not a guy as a Native person who was trying to assert himself as a Native person. He was trying to become the best white man he possibly can. So when we talk about supporting each other within our group, part of it is even the ones who are the most assimilated or acculturated into the dominant culture, we just don't need them fighting the rest of us who are trying to stand up for something stronger than that. And perhaps I need to be amongst those people who take a softer position on those that have gone that way, understanding that, look, that might have been the best option for them as a human being, but as a people, I don't think it necessarily serves us. So the first part of your question about how do we support each other within the groups, part of that is understanding the diversity that exists even within a cultural group, and figuring out the best way to chart out at least some common ground, even if we are church-going, enlisted in the military, running for office on one, but still want to fight on environmental issues with other Native people or whatever else. I mean, I think we have to find the common ground even within a group, and at least try to make sense of the position that we're in as we're fighting for something.
I think that's very key for both of our people to come to that realization that, hey, wait a minute. I know we're all colonized. I know they have twisted our brains 6 ways from Sunday. It's hard to see straight, let alone survive each day. But trying to be beholden to this system and this country that consider both of us to be subhuman is a definition of insanity. We need to get away from the system and from this government and work to end it. because you're talking about 242 years of a double genocide that's never ended. It started with slavery and land grabbing and killing, and still to this day those things are happening to both of us. And then you talk about those other races and other oppressed groups. And John, you said this on a different panel one night, that one group's idea and formula and end goal for liberation might look different than another's. Like just like the two of us, you know, we are trying to figure out who we are, where we came from. We're also trying to free our motherland, which has white hands all over it. And you guys are trying to maintain and regain your land and sovereignty. So obviously those are two similar things to a point, but also very different things. So the end game may look different between us, but I think one point that really needs to be made is we both want to be liberated, and those of us who are working towards that liberation away from the system, we know, okay, well, the system has to go, but we want to be liberated, and we are working towards that liberation. When at the end of the day, we're fighting for the same thing in brass tacks. Obviously, that thing may look different. The land and milk and honey for you guys looks a little different than us, for us. So that there is a contrast to one, how do we get there, and then once we get there, what it looks like. Because when you theorize about a post-America landscape, there will be so much to do and sift through. Like, okay, wait. So does we give all the land back to the native people, and how much money do we give black people here and in Africa? And what about South America? It's a whole muddled mess. But at the end of the day, the land that we stand on is still native land.
Well, that's why the whole conversation about reparations is such a difficult conversation to have. And for me, as a Native person, I am fighting less for reparations to be, for the crimes committed against us in the past. I'm not saying I'm totally against it, but I'm less against that than asserting our rights and our freedoms going forward. So that liberation that I'm talking about isn't just about liberating us from the past. It's about liberating us from the present and the oppression that is currently being waged against us. So I'm not suggesting that there isn't, a tremendous debt to be paid to many people, including especially black people and Native people. But that's not even a conversation that you can have if you're not stopping the oppression today. You can't even begin to have the conversation about reconciliation for the past. I mean, reconciliation, that's even an improper word, because when you use words like reconciliation, it makes it sound like, okay, we were good once, and then we weren't, and now we need to reconcile to be good again. No, the relationship between Native people and white people was never good. The relationship between black people and white people was never good. So it's not about you can't reconcile the past, because there's no place to get back to that puts us on equal footing. So these are the difficult conversations. But in terms of the topic about how we support each other, I think there's the support there's a respect we have to have for the diverse opinions, first off. But then, even though we can appreciate that we all have different perspectives and we are on different places on that spectrum, I still think it goes back to last week's topic in a way. We still need to hold each other accountable. So when I hear a Kanye West saying some of the things that he's saying, because now all of a sudden he's found himself totally endeared himself into not just Trump's ideology, but a very affluent white family in terms of the Kardashians or whoever else. I have no problem holding him accountable for speaking out, essentially, trying to condemn all other black people for what? Not having achieved what he has achieved individually? Because I think the difference between fighting oppression, it's not a personal battle. When you're fighting oppression, you're trying to fight an oppressive system, not just for your own individual liberation.
Yeah, he threw us under the bus, and he wants to be liked in white society. He wants a piece of that cake that OJ had for so long, the "I'm not black, I'm OJ" type complex. And I think there are many different ways one of us from either group of people can harm, whether it's the group that they're from or the other one. And it could be something like a self-hating comment by Kanye. It could be like that dude on Twitter that I guess went viral, said that Native people got reparations in the form of reservations in casinos, so everything's fine. Or black people being called settlers, even though we didn't settle here, we were dragged here against our will and made to work for free. And we're still enslaved in the prison system. It's a tough concept to hold each other accountable. I think it's a tougher concept to hold each other accountable when, like you were saying about running for office, especially if it's national, like if you're running for governor or if you're running for a U.S. Senate seat, because when you start doing that, and I know you know that better than anybody, Sean, you look like a pariah. The other folks in your community are like, wait a minute. He's trying, he or she, they're trying to change the system from within. They're uplifting us, which gets said all the time. And then you have something like how Native men and black men treat Native women and black women. And that, I shouldn't say is as tough to call out. It's just the fallout from that is very, very, very raw, very nasty. And the defense that we have, men, to defend the misogyny, defend the patriarchy, which is this stuff is all new to us. We are allergic to this stuff. This stuff is not our own. This is white society. This is whiteness. This is not us. But even still, you have a situation where we have to call each other out on all this stuff. We have to, even if it does get that yucky, even if it does get those conversations get that difficult. It's a must. We have to if we want to progress out of this struggle. Another question Tracy had was, who decides what is supportive versus what isn't? I think that the question remains in our communities. I don't think the question pertains to white folks. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tracy. But
no.
Yeah. So that's a good question because I've done it. Others have done it, stepping over on other people's toes, speaking out of turn, and me as a black person regarding Native issues. So that could get messy. So I'll pose the question to John. Who do you think decides what is supportive versus what isn't, and well, I should say, who should decide?
Well, I think part of it, is when there's a call out for support on an issue. The first question is, are you asking for help? I'll use an example. One of the examples I think that comes to mind where people really don't, other people have not really stepped up are things like the mascot issue, for instance. It's easy to trivialize this idea of stereotyping people and using, or making light of somebody's culture, and the analogies that get used. I heard people say, well, I've never heard Norwegians complain about Vikings or something like that being used or something along those lines. But, so when you put the call out and, then those who receive that call, it's clearly up to them whether they're going to support an issue or not. So whether it's trying to stop a pipeline going under a river, like a Dakota Access Pipeline, whether it's standing up and making noise because of these two Mohawk boys who got yanked out of a tour at the Colorado State University because a white woman thought that they were, because she said they made them nervous, or whether it's for Native people who refuse to stand up along with Black Lives Matter. I mean, I think these are the issues that, I think it's incumbent upon all of us who can witness, anybody who can witness oppression. I think it's on any of us, and that's not just marginalized groups. That's the dominant society as well, to step up. The problem is that's not just. I mean, there are people who become too comfortable in the situation that they're in.
Oh yeah, the Ben Carson effect, far too comfortable. Tracy, you can say something.
Yes, a conversation that I saw today centering around the Tariq Nasheed crap that he was spewing. There were some Indigenous Americans that wanted to address him and for us to be quiet. And I came across that comment long after I had gone in on Tariq. I've gone on him for years and years. He's just a horrible person. So for me, as someone who never stays silent in the face of any ism or any phobia, any acronym you care to throw out there, I won't be quiet when I see it. I think it's abusive. When I see a few members of the group that I'm not a part of say something like, stay in your lane, we got this, but I see other members of the group being very supportive of addressing the issue that's right there, I get a little torn, and I think anyone in any group would feel the same way, faced with similar circumstances. I get torn about what my response should be. My heart and my soul won't let me be quiet when I see people being abusive or racist or whatever ism you want to put out there. But I don't want to be disrespectful, and I want to also acknowledge what has been requested of me or us. It wasn't a direct comment to me personally, so much as a statement that was made. So I end up, what I find myself doing is amplifying everyone's voice, and I stop as soon as I see a member of that group say, let us do this. So I stopped talking about Tariq because of that. So I would like to see how, and I know, don't talk over, always amplify the affected voices. But in terms of trying to move together toward making sure that these flat out lies about Indigenous Americans are not spread and are addressed when I see them, I need to know directly from Indigenous people. It would help me to be better. How would you like for me to address this in a way that's not harmful to you? And I think that communities need to have conversations about that with each other. Whatever your minority status is, or your state of being that puts you in an oppressed group.
That's a very good point. It's, what Tariq said. I'm with you, Tracy, on him. I had kept his Twitter on my Twitter, not so much following him, but just if he tweets something that needed to be tweeted with the followers that he has, okay, I might retweet it, or at least take the link that he's put out and then tweet it. But I've known for a while this guy is a misogynist. He's a bigot. He's a problem, and we need to call him out at every available time we can. John brought up the situation. Two Native kids two young Native people at school, at a college, are being racially profiled, and then Tariq goes on to say the two men in this story are white. They are not targeted because they are Native, because these men do not have identifiable Native features or attire. Understand that this is deflection propaganda.
Nolan, you followed me a long time, and I'm not here for anyone trying to play race police or ethnicity police.
Mm-hmm.
But I just lost my shit. I was really upset and angry, and how dare you?
Mm-hmm.
And I said something about it several times today, actually. However, when I saw somewhere in the comments, there were a few indigenous people who rightfully, I'm not complaining, but rightfully told a few commenters to back up and let them deal with it. I was like, you know what? Maybe I need to, wait a minute, maybe I need to be quiet. And I, of course, shared content from indigenous people on the matter, regardless of the position of, stated. I shared the content of let us lead, let us do this, but then I backed away from voicing because I don't want to not be supportive in the way that indigenous Americans want me to be supportive. So I'm all for listening and doing what I'm asked to do and not doing what I'm asked not to do. But I would
part
really...
of the problem is,
yes, go ahead.
I see Native people oftentimes want to have it both ways, and that's part of the problem. I mean, we so rarely get a voice on issues that when we do get a platform to stand on, I don't necessarily agree with some of the voices that come onto that platform. And so those voices that will tell somebody else, no, don't weigh in here because you're not Native or you're not Native enough. I hear that one too. Look, I think it's the same thing as people weighing in on the Starbucks issue, and that's where this Colorado State University thing came in. For anybody to suggest that somehow these kids were just white kids, and for anybody, whether it's a black man or anybody else, saying that these were just people who didn't have any distinct ethnic appearance. For one thing, that is bullshit. But I think the idea of trying to silence any of the voices condemning that, I don't agree with that. Look, I may not agree with everybody's approach towards condemning an oppressive situation or an abusive situation, but I want to hear those voices because, look, there may be some reason that I'm not understanding the feedback that's coming from somebody, and frankly, if I hear something inappropriate coming from a black man on a Native issue, I would love to hear another black voice, put that person in his place. I don't need to be the only person who does that. So it is difficult, and I know that I say some things that that make Native people cringe, because I take things, I'm a lot farther out, or a lot more radical, I guess you would say, than some people. When I quote, I quote Malcolm X's House Negro speech, and then I think we got some Native people who want to play that House Negro role. I mean, role. That I pissed off a few people, but you know what? These are, to me, the conversations that need to be had, and we get into this debate sometimes, especially Native people, about assimilation, and it's the same thing, that isn't necessarily verbalized with black people or other marginalized people, but it's like, oh, why can't you just fit in like white people, or pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing, the way we all did, which is again is more bullshit. But the issue that I have is that there really wasn't ever an attempt to assimilate black people or Native people within the spectrum of American society. They just wanted us securely at the bottom of their social structure. Mm-hmm. That's not assimilation. That's subjugation, and that subjugation continues today. Now, that's not to say that a few Native people don't make it out, and a few out of that the bowels of their system, or a few black people don't. Yeah, there's the Ben Carsons, and there's the Sherman Alexis, and there's the Susan Harjos, and there's Uncle Toms and Uncle Tom Toms all over the place. But the fact of the matter is, those are individuals. They aren't representing as peoples when they achieve some of that white success. And I think this is where I think, again, that question of how do we stand together and identifying, almost redefining not only who we are as individuals, but how we characterize success. Because if success just means becoming like white people, we're never going to get there. And most of us don't want to get there. I mean, there are the Kanye West, and there are the Ben Carsons, and there are people within Native territory. I mean, I look at guys like Dave Archambault, who is the tribal chairman of the Standing Rock Sioux. I mean, he was all over Barack Obama when Obama was proposing the Dakota Access Pipeline. So I mean, he found his best friend to be the president of the United States. For us, we have a word for the president. We call it Ramadagayas, and it means town destroyer, and it becomes synonymous with that position. Not with the individual, but the position who sits in that position. And frankly, Barack Obama was just as destructive to many Native issues as some of the Republicans that came before or since him.
Sad but true.
It's so true. So true.
I think you answered your own question, Tracy, with who decides what is supportive versus what isn't. I think and John said it as well, I think there is a time and a place to support another marginalized group, even repeating things that have been said by the marginalized group or taught to you, because it's the truth. That group is going, hey, this is what we go through, this is it, understand this and help. And then, of course, just stepping back and letting the members of that marginalized group tell it like it is. Because unless you are of an oppressed group, you are not ever going to fully understand what they go through. I could read book after book. I can go to lecture after lecture. I can meet Native person, activist, scholar after activist and scholar. But I will never fully understand what indigenous people have gone through and go through. The same thing for me as a man. I don't know what it's like to just be outside at night walking home and being fearful for my own life.
As a woman, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what that feels like, because I'm a guy. I'm a man. So taking that information in, shutting our mouths and opening our ears is very important to be supported.
Well, there's several places to stand when there's an issue. You can either stand beside people who are confronting something, you can stand behind them and support them, or you can take a leadership role in some of these issues. And I think depending on the situation, the circumstance is what dictates that. Of course, the other thing is you can stand in opposition to people who are standing up against oppression. So, that I think understanding. I mean, I was never in love with the idea of trying to take Black Lives Matter and say, well, Red Lives Matter. No, that was unnecessary to do that, or All Lives Matter, or any of that other bullshit. No, Black Lives Matter. The message was clear. What that was, and we didn't need to, try to water down that slogan, if you will, or that chant, or that hashtag, whatever you want to call it, because it meant what it meant, and of course, if you're saying Black Lives Matter, and you have to make that statement, it's because that's not the way society is, and I didn't need to throw in that Red Lives or Native Lives Matter because it's inherent with the Black Lives Matter movement, as far as I was concerned. So, I mean, there's places. I mean, Colin Kaepernick is another example. Look, I fully supported what Colin was doing from the start. But I'll tell you, there was an awful lot of Native people who have been so lured into the sense of patriotism. Native people enlist at the highest rate of any other demographic or ethnic demographic in the United States. And then I hear weak-ass, bullshit said like, well, the reason they do it is because they're warrior culture. Which is such a cop-out and a stupid thing to say anyway. I mean, the reason that marginalized people enlist most of the time is because it's the best option that they have left in life because their circumstances are so dire that level of equality as an enlisted man, as a pawn of somebody's military-industrial complex, was better than the chances they had at home. That's not about patriotism. But then what happens is, and we see this in all of these marginalized cultures, once they've done that enlistment, all of a sudden they become these super patriots, and you see these guys wrapping themselves up in the American flag and Trumpism and all kinds of other stuff. It's because we've convoluted the whole subject and really what drove us to make certain decisions in our lives in the first place.
That's one of my pet peeves in life, is seeing a black person wearing a shirt with the American flag, and a black Olympian hugging the flag. It turns my skin. It turns my stomach. I mean, it's equal to if a Jewish person during the Holocaust wrapped themselves up in the swastika. It's absolutely nonsensical. You're forgetting your history. You're forgetting your current reality. Like when you said, John, about in order for reparations to have a full discussion about reparations, America would have to stop killing us and putting us in prison and stealing our children, et cetera, which they've been doing this whole time. You can't get over something that's still happening. And of course, that's white people's favorite go-to line is "get over it was in the past." Well, it's still going on. If you're still hitting somebody in the face, and the other person says, "Hey, can you apologize? I mean, ow, this hurts. Stop. Can you say sorry?" and then stop it. It's a ridiculous concept. Like, you're still getting hit, but you're also saying, can you say sorry for what you're doing, and what you did, and what you're doing, and then stop it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's like apologizing for locking somebody up and never letting them out at the same time. Sorry, your conviction was fraudulent and you shouldn't have been in prison. We're really sorry for that. And then still not let them out. I mean, that's kind of what the analogy. I mean, I look at what's happening systemically, and again, racism being that, part of that system of oppression. But when I look at what's happening to people of color, whether you look at the judicial system or whether you look at the education system, you look at the economies and how, the abject poverty that people are forced to live in because of policy, not just because, just bad luck. I mean, Native people living at the lowest levels economically than of anybody in the country. That's not an accident, and it's not. It certainly isn't because we have a we have no desire to thrive as a people. And it's the same thing when you look, at black communities. When you look at the poverty that exists in some of those places, it's by design. It's not by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And when we build something and build our own communities, they destroy it. The both of us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not allowed to succeed in any kind of massive scale, a group scale. It's one thing for an individual to thrive, and even they will be cut down at the knees if they start defending and fighting for their people too much. But yeah, that whole bootstraps theory it's white nonsense. It's diversion, and Tyreek said it's a deflection propaganda. You're part of the deflection propaganda within your own statement. I mean, that's what white people do all the time to both of us. Like, oh, is she black? Is Kathleen Cleaver black? Is she a White Panther or a Black Panther? What do you do? I mean, that type of part of it's assimilation, part of it is submission, and part of it is just being an awful person.
Entitlement.
And
What is it about you that makes you think you have the right to dictate to someone else who and what they are?
Yeah. It goes
Well,
right.
it's interesting. I'm recording a segment tomorrow on there's a show called The Takeaway. It's one of the NPR shows. It's out of WCN NYC in New York. I'm recording a segment for that, and it's about identity. And for the most part, they've got a new host on that show, and they've been talking about the diverse identities that make up America, right? And so I sent an email and I said, yeah, but not all of us want our identity to be part of that, that patchwork that is America. I mean, we don't consider ourselves Americans. So we get into this conversation about identity, and what happens is other people try to create with that identity, and that is exemplified more so with Native people than anybody, because even the words that they call us, whether it's Native American or American Indian or tribes, or even when they break them down, when they say there's 567 federally recognized tribes, a lot of times those are manufactured names. The Standing Rock Sioux, the Fort Peck Reservation. I mean, when I think about the names that have been used, even, my wife's Oneida. So there's the Oneida Indian Nation of New York. Well, what the hell kind of name is that? Versus the Oneida Tribe of Wisconsin, or the Oneidas of the Thames, which is in Ontario. Senecas, there's a Seneca Nation of Indians, there's a Tonawanda Band of Senecas, and then there's a group called the Cayuga Senecas out in Oklahoma. We didn't have that. Those are all manufactured by powers that be in Washington. Say, okay, now we've got these distinct groups. We're not going to recognize the Oneida people as a people. We're going to say, no, you're either this group, that group, or that group, or we simply don't recognize you. So this identity game, not to mention most of these words aren't even ours. They've been bastardized names that they, like calling the Lakota Sioux. That's not even a word that they embrace, and yet most of them will still accept it. If you talk to someone from Standing Rock, they'll say, yeah, I'm an enrolled member of the Standing Rock Sioux. And yet they know the word Sioux is an insult in their language. I mean, so when you talk about identities, not just identity politics, but identities, this is where, we see, I mean, we see how we become marginalized because we don't even get to define ourselves. Somebody else is always trying to define us for them or for ourselves, and they do that through stereotypes. They do that through movies and media and mascots and again in politics. They do this through the prison system and through education. So and I think this is where again we really do need to support each other. I mean, hell, when they put the Emancipation Proclamation on display a couple of years ago, and they brought it out of archives. And there were black people lined up for miles around the block at the National Archives just so they could lay their eyes on it. Nobody recognizing the fact that a week before Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, 38 Dakota were hung in Mankato, Minnesota, by order of Abraham Lincoln, the largest mass execution in the history of the United States. And so when a Native person like me tries to raise that issue, and I do raise it quite often because it exemplifies how much is hidden in history, there's a certain level of black person that says, yeah, but he freed us. And not even understanding what it exactly was that Abraham Lincoln did with the Emancipation Proclamation.
The man who detested abolitionists freed us. The man who tried to deport us many times, not back to Africa, freed us. The man who said we were subhuman, not good enough to be lawyers or doctors, hold political offices, ever touched their women, he freed us. And then, of course, there's the line that crosses for the two of us. You have, to this day, May 9th, 2018, when we're recording this particular panel, still the largest mass hanging in the history of the United States. That says a lot, because there's been a lot of mass genocide.
Well, mass execution. I want to say mass execution because there were probably mass hangings that were bigger than that. There's a difference between a lynching, a hanging, and an execution. One is because they were adjudicated and they were sentenced to death, and that execution order signed by the President of the United States. Because I think there was a lot of hangings that took place for black people. That may about number 38.
I think maybe it was a federal something that came from the level of national government and something that was federal. But as far as I've read, in terms of mass hanging, it's still the highest. Now, what they did to us for so long is they pick one or two or three of us and just maim us and mutilate our bodies and lynch us. Like, it was almost at times it's like, okay, one by one, tomorrow we're gonna hang Toby, and the next day we're gonna hang Dolores. So but there's the intersecting of our two people. There's so much similarity within our struggle, within our double genocide, with how we fight through our struggle and dual genocide, which is something that we really, on both sides of the table, need to understand about each other. Because so often you'll hear something like Tariq say, "Well, they're white. They don't have native features." You hear a lot of even black people say, "Is he black? Is he black? Is he black? Is she black? Is she dark enough?" Like, just that erasure of identity, like you were saying, John. We get into these colonial distractions, these colonial games that they invented. They invented race. White people invented race, and we're falling right down that trap door. And Blood Quantum and One Drop Rule, and we did a show on it. We're probably going to do a part 2 to that in the near future. But we keep falling into that trap door instead of looking at the stuff for what it is and calling it out. I hear so often black folks being, in their defense of being allergic to help Native people. They go, well, they enslaved us. There was five nations out of hundreds. There's 5. Okay, are we really going to play this game right now? And also, of course, the idea of slavery was forced upon them by the colonial power of the United States, and before that, the Crown of England. So let's just think about what we're saying for 5 seconds before it actually comes out of our mouths. We don't need to denigrate. We don't need to denigrate ourselves and we definitely don't need to denigrate another group of people as bad off as we are. We need each other. We need each other for our own survival and our own chance to liberate the two of us.
Well, and even if our goals aren't exactly the same, what we're still trying to do is improve our quality of life from where it's at right now. There's no question about that. And, one of the things about Native people trying to assert, their distinction and their autonomy and their sovereignty as a people, part of the benefit of us having, even having a legal position to do such a thing is that we create the opportunity to create a working model that doesn't exist in a place, that, let's face it, the United States, the system isn't exactly working very well. And it hasn't worked very well for many people ever. But now there are more and more people who are coming to realize that that doesn't work for them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. And while that can be a good thing, because you are seeing more people of color standing up and going, all right, this is all bullshit. We gotta end this. We gotta end this right now. Capitalism is ridiculous. We gotta end this right now. But even still, and I'm not talking about white people that are hopeless as a group of people to actually help us, but within our communities, you still see us in droves. Look, if we vote out the problem, we can fix this. Vote out you're voting out the problem with new problems. Doug Jones is a perfect example. The whole election down there versus him and Roy Moore was liberals going, oh my gosh, we gotta get this guy to beat this Roy Moore guy. Well, yeah, okay, you're right. The other guy is some demonic creature from hell. I'm with you there. But then Doug Jones, no, he's going to save Alabama. He's so progressive, and the Democrats need to finally, take back this country. Like, okay, first of all, it's not your country.
Those people did not research Doug Jones.
Mm-hmm. And as you've seen, if you studied what Doug has done since he got into office, he supported Republican bills. He supported that new. Was it the Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, whatever the hell that awful guy's name is, supporting wars, funding the military, the whole 9 yards. And he was supposed to, if we vote them out, we'll be okay. And one thing I laugh at, how do you vote out the Supreme Court, who has said in U.S. law, none of this land belongs to Native people. None of this is Native people's land. How do you vote them out? Because last time I checked, when you get in the Supreme Court, you're in there for life. So we have...
Well, and it's a liberal justice in Ruth Bader Ginsburg who cited the doctrine of Christian discovery as grounds to throw out an Oneida land claim case. So, even if you could argue that, put Democrats in office and they're going to put more liberal justice, hell, that's a Jewish liberal justice on the Supreme Court citing Christian dogma as the reason to hold a racial bias over a Native person's claim or a Native people's claim to land.
Which shows you the whole ball of wax is ridiculous. You have Jewish senators or Jewish lawmakers supporting Israel, which is, okay, yeah, Jewish people, but then wait a minute, what happened to y'all about 80 years ago? You're doing the same thing to these colored folks that was done to you 80 years ago. What are you doing? This system in government is so inherently wrong, rotten to its core, for us to continually go, vote it out. We just have to trust the Democrats. They'll finally get it together. The Democrats were founded by Andrew Jackson, for God's sake. And then when the Dixiecrat crossover finally made its final move, you have FDR, one of the heroes of liberalism, saying, hey, Jackson was my hero. just like Trump. Jackson is my hero. So we need to support each other in the form of educating each other. One thing, and my father was a Black Panther, is one of the many things I'm proud of him for so many things. One of the many things I'm proud of because he was a Black Panther is the Panthers had educational workshops in the community. They got other brothers and sisters to come, tonight, all right, let's hear this lecture about how capitalism is destroying our communities and how it's destroying Africa. Okay, let's hear how, the patriarchy is messing with our women. Let's have women speakers, Black women speak and teach us how to be real men and treat our women with respect like we used to before all this colonial BS happened. We have to educate ourselves and listen to other marginalized groups, especially Black to Native and Native to Black. Listen when the other side talks about their experience and about their race, the racism lodged against them, and not what did that Kuhn say? Understand that this is deflection propaganda. Are you freaking kidding me? My gosh, I can't. He should. I blocked him when he did. That was like, all right. Get away from my computer and my phone. I never want to see you again. But yeah, we have to support each other and we have to listen. I think, and I think we're all on the same page with that. And I think we all did a good job of listening and learning from each other tonight. And I'm always grateful to have you two on, and grateful to be friends with y'all as well. And I will look forward to the next time that you guys, Tracy and John, are back on the roundtable. And I wish you two a great rest of your week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nolan, for... Oh, yes. Go ahead, Tracy. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. I was just saying thank you and bye.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Nolan, for again, presenting a topic and allowing us to pick it apart a little bit. I appreciate the opportunity. We'll talk soon.
Indeed. Take care. Peace.
Yep.